Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamingTech.com video, I've got a question. What the hell was that? I'm going to be real with you guys. As the Nvidia conference finished, I literally was sat here for 10-15 minutes, just like, what the hell went on at that conference? I had big expectations, as regular viewers will know, but by gosh, just my goodness, Nvidia knocked it out of the park. So what the plan is with this video is to kind of go over some of the announcements and my thoughts. I will link the official video in the description of this one, and I suggest you give it a watch yourself if you're so inclined. I want to abbreviate it and kind of just focus on some of the main areas that I find super interesting. There are some aspects of what Nvidia have announced, which as of the time that I'm recording this, which is literally minutes after the event finished, they haven't really been fully fleshed out. So I suspect that I'll need to probably come back to some areas. For example, the decompression technology for SSDs. Yes, Nvidia are actually providing technology to decompress data and offload it from the CPU, which is insane. But we'll get into that in just a moment. So one of the first things that I'd like to discuss is Nvidia REFLEX. And this is in an effort to reduce latency. To my understanding, it seems to be available on basically multiple generations of Nvidia cards. You will, of course, need to update your driver for this, and according to Nvidia, the drivers will be available this month. As of the time I'm recording this, they don't seem to have an exact date for that, but they claim it will reduce system and input latency by up to 50%, which is pretty damn nuts, honestly. If this is accurate, and obviously I'm not independently able to verify this yet, that would provide Nvidia gamers a really big edge for games like, for example, Counter-Strike, which obviously are very, well, reaction-focused and latency-focused. So what you would, of course, ideally pair that with is something like 144, or even better, a 244 Hz screen. I'm honestly not a pro gamer by any means now. I used to play kind of competitively Counter-Strike back in the day, like 1.6, but that's way behind me, so it's not something I personally am going to be taking any advantage of. But even so, reduction in latency with games is always a good thing. I don't think anyone's ever said, you know what would be good? More lag. So I think it's pretty cool. Obviously, there are still other latency issues that this is not going to be addressing. So, for example, if you're playing against someone who's, you know, on a 56k modem, then the connection's still going to suck. But at least on your end, you can do the best you can to minimize the latency. So that's pretty cool. That's a cool piece of tech. The next is the Nvidia Broadcast. This was demonstrated quite well by Brandon. There's not a huge amount for me to say with this, other than it's basically using AI to essentially just empower content creators and streamers. This is going to be really handy for streamers. If it's as good as, once again, they demonstrate, and it was a live demonstration, well, pre-recorded, but, you know, they were testing a variety of different things, and it looked pretty legit to me. It's very impressive. The microphone, for example, you can remove even a hairdryer that's on in the same room as you, which is quite frankly ridiculously good. With the camera, you can have it so that, let's say for sake of argument, you're zooming in a little bit to your head, and then you move your head side to side rather than it going out of frame. The camera will essentially, the image will essentially track your head. Obviously, it's not moving the camera, but instead, what it's doing is basically adjusting the position that the image was cropped in at. So it's basically following where you are looking. It's pretty damn cool. There's also the ability to remove the background and either put yourself in the game, overlay yourself over the game, or perhaps, let's say you're I don't know, wanted to blur out your background, maybe you've got like children running around or stuff like that and you're not comfortable with them being on stream, That's also entirely possible. It looks pretty damn cool, honestly. Once again, it's something that I suspect a ton of people are going to be using. There are millions of streamers now, and obviously the PC is by far becoming one of the more popular platforms, and that's putting it very diplomatically for streaming. So I think this is pretty damn cool. And it also, outside of gaming, could be awesome too. Even if you're like a live blogger or something like that, there's like I suspect that there's a ton of different options for this. Even if you're doing like presentations, or hell, even something drier like financial explanations, or maybe detailing something like I don't know, maybe you're giving like a math tutor or something like that. It would be pretty cool. So that is awesome. The next thing is Machinima, and well, Machinima has been really ballooning recently, and Nvidia are essentially really pushing this. They have Nvidia OMNIVERSE Machinima, and it allows you to do a ton of stuff. Honestly, I'm not a Machinima creator, but even I was damn impressed with what you're able to do. You are able to do things like be able to track your own body, and essentially you can use that from like a webcam or something like that to animate models in the game. You can have a model in the game which will essentially realistically move their mouth based upon what you're saying. And this is irrespective of race, gender, and all of that stuff. So it's really cool what Nvidia have been showing off there. The beta for this is in October. But I know you're probably just like drumming your fingers, skipping forward. When the hell is the Nvidia RTX stuff? And here we go. So, there was an awful lot of pushing again for hardware-based ray tracing, unsurprisingly, AI, unsurprisingly, and of course the ability for programmable shaders. So Nvidia basically have three separate parts in their GPU. They've got the CUDA cores, which, well, you know, we know what they are. We've got the ray tracing units, and then of course you've got the tensor cores themselves. What basically Nvidia have done here, I can only describe as, I can't say it any other way, it's Pascal 2.0. The jump that Nvidia have managed to achieve here, it's like the stars have aligned. Honestly, this is just absolutely crazy. And I'm trying not to sound fanboyish, I really am, but the jump in performance is just staggering. So for a start, one of the things Nvidia have done with AMPERE is they have drastically improved the shading performance. And one of the ways they've done this is by enabling 2 operations per shader clock compared to just a single operation. That alone is obviously a staggering performance increase from one generation to the other. Next, the RT cores themselves have also seen a drastic increase in performance. With the numbers Nvidia are showing here, we are seeing 34 RT T-flops versus 58 RT T-flops. It's kind of amusing, actually, on that subject. Nvidia kind of made a light jab at Xbox, and I think it was a friendly way of Jensen putting it, but he said something like that if Nvidia had been calculating GPU performance like Xbox had for the ray tracing BVH calculations, you know how they said it was 13 T-flops? They said that the 2080 Ti would be 34 T-flops on just ray tracing alone, which gives you an idea. That is basically saying that if they wanted that level of performance, it would be essentially like having a second GPU, I'm talking about for the Xbox here, a second GPU which would be able to put out 13 T-flops if it was just running on the RDNA 2 compute units, rather than utilising the ray tracing cores, which of course are present in the Xbox Series X. So I think that's pretty damn awesome. That's a pretty tangible, it's a sizable leap in performance. Furthermore, the tensor cores too have seen, I can't even describe it, I mean, it's just the numbers we're seeing is just bonkers. There is nothing else I can say. It's like, it's bonkers. The tensor cores, it's gone from 89 tensor T-flops to 238 T-flops, tensor T-flops. This is basically what's running linear algebra. Wow, I can't even say the word. Linear algebra, which is responsible for deep learning, which enables things like DLSS and other shiny things. But essentially now we have a Ampere architecture which is up to 28 billion transistors and is built on Samsung's 8nm process. It's a custom process apparently, seemingly joint created by Samsung as well as Nvidia. Nvidia have done this in the past. Obviously we've seen them do it before, so it's kind of cool. I think it was the 16nm process from Nvidia with Pascal, so it's kind of cool. Once again, you can see a quick reminder of the performance here: 30 T-flops, that is on the shader, 58 T-flops for ray tracing, and 228 T-flops. Performance per watt scaling, I can't, just jeez. They've basically gone off the scale. They're saying that it's almost, well, it's 1.9, so we can say essentially 2 times performance per watt scaling over Turing, which is absolutely crazy. And Nvidia have also created a benchmark here where we can see Turing versus Ampere. These games are running on an Intel i9, so we can assume it's like a 10900K maybe, or maybe a 9900K. But either way, the jump in performance is, well, depending on the game, crazy. We're looking at a minimum of maybe 1.6, not 1.8, 1.6 speed up. And a game like RTX Quake, it's maybe about 1.8. And then Blender or Chaos V-Ray or something like Arnold, which is obviously more creative stuff, that meanwhile is around 2 times increase. Obviously it does depend upon the application. That's kind of crazy. That's again a 2 times increase in ray/triangle intersection performance. And then they showed off the Marbles demo. And they basically stated that it was over 4 times the performance of what they managed to achieve with Turing. Which, again, is fully path traced here. This is not hybrid, rasterization. Not only is it 4 times the performance, but furthermore, they actually increased the detail too. So it would actually be higher if they'd have just left it as it was for Turing. But no, they not only increased the performance by 4 times, but then they increased the detail as well. That is just, jeez, Nvidia, jeez. What are you doing? Just what are you doing? Stop, Jansen, please. And then we have RTX IO. I speculated about this in a few videos before, and I even made a video of what's going to happen with PCs in the future with SSDs becoming so prevalent. So Ampere, as the leaks have said for a long ass time now, is PCIe Gen 4. But the next gen consoles, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox, have had a major advantage up until now with PCs. And that is that they've got decompression blocks which literally offload the work from the CPU to custom-built decompression blocks. And this, of course, is excellent because if you're decompressing so much data so quickly, like the Gen 4 SSDs can go to like 7 gigabytes per second, you need to be able to offload that. Even if you have like let's say a 10900K, which is a 10-core processor, or you've got like even a 3950X, you don't want to have like 4, 5, 6, 8 of those cores or whatever just being absolutely ruined by decompressing like gigabytes of data a second. Because not only, of course, is that going to eat up performance, which you may want to do other things like background tasks, but it's also going to increase the heat on the CPU, and it's not good. Let's just be honest. So, Nvidia have created RTX IO. They're stating it's 100 times the throughput, 20 times the lower CPU utilization, and it supports Microsoft's direct storage for Windows. It seems basically a little bit like they are taking some of the work that Microsoft have been doing with the Xbox Series X. It's still using direct storage, which of course the Xbox Series X does, but they are creating their own decompression. And it's running on the GPU, and then that basically decompresses into the GPU's memory. So this doesn't work for stuff which is going to the CPU, to my understanding. I could be wrong there, but that's fine because, you know, 4K textures or whatever are going to the GPU's memory, not the CPU's memory. So that should be okie dokie, Skip. I don't see any issues with that. The CPU is not dealing with as much data so quickly as what the GPU is. Then then Nvidia showed off a quick demo of Cyberpunk running on the new Nvidia graphics card, and then we saw finally a breakdown of the specifications. So the 3080 specs are now confirmed. We know what they are anyway. You can probably read them off by heart with me. GDDR6X memory, 19 GBps. We have a grand total of 760 gigabytes per second. That's 10 gigs of memory. And of course it supports things like DLSS. They're saying it's got 2 times the second generation RT cores, again, 58 T-flops, twice the ray/triangle intersection performance. And I noticed that they also state that it's got concurrent RT plus graphics and concurrent RT plus compute. That's definitely a dig at AMD. Because obviously with AMD's RDNA 2 architecture, you need to run those operations, the ray tracing operations, basically on the same shaders. So compute and all this stuff is being run on the same shaders. And furthermore, if AMD support a technology like DLSS, some type of upsampling, which I believe there's a very good chance they will, it too needs to run on the compute units. There are some benefits to this though, but Nvidia are definitely taking a dig. Next we see a whole bunch of stuff with the cooler, it looks great, and then finally we see the card itself, and it looks beautiful. According to Nvidia, it's their greatest generational leap ever. I also have to give Nvidia some kudos just for a second, because they do confirm that Turing was amazing from a hardware perspective, but it just didn't have the performance. Basically, the tech was great. Hardware-based ray tracing, DLSS, blah blah blah. But for the price, it just didn't have the performance. They admitted this, which is good. They call the 3080 the flagship, and it's going to be $700 US. Now, the 3070 meanwhile is going to be $500 US, and it contains 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, not 6X. Again, 500 versus the price of the 3080, which is 699. The 3080 launches in the 17th of September. The 3070, though, seems to be available in October, so it's a bit later. They're stating that the 3070 is faster than the 2080 Ti, even without RTX enabled. The 3080, meanwhile, seems to stomp the 2080 Ti. I mean, again, it's a Pascal moment. The 3090, though, was also shown off, and this has, well, a price tag to match. It's going to cost you $1,500 US, and it is monstrous. It has 24 gigabytes of RAM and will be available on the 24th. So basically, if you want to pick up one of these rather than the 3080, you have to wait a week. We saw the card can do absolutely ludicrous things, like you can actually play games at 8K. You probably won't for the average person, but yeah. A couple of things. I personally would say that if you're gaming focused, I don't know if the 3090 is a card that is going to be worth it for the majority of people. I'm not saying don't buy it. If you've got the budget, by all means, go out. I personally think that the 3080 and the 3070 are just insane value. I am wondering about if there's going to be enough VRAM on there. That is the only concern. My only concern is the VRAM quantities. But then, if you look at most games now, I think we should be okay. Personally, I think it should be fine. There are titles like Flight Simulator, but honestly, they're not exactly prevalent. So I think Nvidia, should be okay with this. The rumour is that AMD will be outfitting their cards with 16, but will they? For pricing reasons? I just don't know. I think Nvidia did this for price reasons. There are rumours that we'll see a 3080 with 20 gigs, but I suspect it's probably going to be maybe 800, maybe $900, and I suspect that we'll see like the 3080 Ti launch as well, which we can presume will be a cut down variant of the 3090. I could keep talking about these cards forever, but yeah, to me, Nvidia just absolutely knocked it out of the park. They did an amazing job. I think that the pricing is perfect. And I think just a ton of people are going to want to jump from a 970 or a 1070 or something like that and jump onto the 3070. Because I've said for a long time that I think that currently the sweet spot in PC gaming is like a high refresh rate 1440p display. This is, once again, assuming that you're not operating on an unlimited budget. Like, if obviously you've got the budget for it, by all means, buy like a high refresh rate, 4K panel and all of that stuff. But I think, for most people, 144, 165 hertz, 1440p monitor with like a 70 class card, whether that's from AMD or Nvidia, is kind of like the best way to go. So I think the pricing here is bang on. I think that Nvidia listened about a lot of the complaints, probably as well spurred on by competition, which is coming from AMD, and I think that they've got the price exactly where I'd hoped for. I'd expected that these cards would be $100 more than what they're ending up being, so I'm really pleased about that, but it's the performance. I think we're going to see an awful lot of people jump onto PC gaming with these cards. Hey all, Paul from the future here. I was just wrapping up recording. I actually sent it over to Amy so that she could be doing the editing while I'm working on the Xbox script that I've been working on the last few days. And then I happened to notice that Nvidia had actually updated their website with the introduction to the RTX 30 series. They have not gone exhaustively into all of the technology here. There will be white papers which are released soon, and I will be going more deeply into those. But one of the criticisms I had of the event was, and this is now being edited out, was that we didn't really have a game-by-game breakdown of how the 30 series compares against the 20 series. And now we do, with some caveats. Unfortunately, the 2080 Ti is not shown here. The two grey bars represent the previous generation, which are the 2070S and the 2080S, and then obviously the two green bars are the 3070 and 3080, with the 3090 not being shown as well. I suspect that in a lot of games, the 3090 is not going to be that much faster than the 3080. I mean, it will definitely be faster, and it will definitely be much faster when it comes to something like content creation, but we'll have to wait and see. However, the 3070 just absolutely demolishes the 2070 Super. It's looking about 35, maybe 40% faster, but that's the 2070 Super, so if it's against the 2070, you can kind of imagine that it's going to be, maybe about 50-ish% faster. The 3080, meanwhile, I'm going to look at the Borderlands, Doom, and Red Dead results first. We'll look at the hardware-based ray tracing results in just a moment. Again, the 3080 is way faster than the 2080 Super. The 2080 Super is about 1.2 times faster than the 2070 Super, and then we've got the 3080 there, which is maybe about 1.8, 1.9 for all of the games, with Red Dead Redemption 2 being a little slower. Hardware-based ray tracing with DLSS is what we're seeing with RTX On, and again, the performance results here are quite staggering. I think it's fair to say that the 3080 is going to mean that, yes, you can probably run hardware-based ray tracing in pretty much every game, a high resolution, if you're willing to enable DLSS, which personally I think you should anyway. There are other games as well, which of course will be coming out soon with DLSS, such as Watch Dogs Legion, Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, and Cyberpunk. So it's going to be fascinating to see how those implementations of DLSS and hardware-based ray tracing actually affect performance, and also what the higher quality settings will do to Turing versus Ampere. Anyway, I think that's just about it for this video. Apologies for it not being ultra technical and breakdown, but again, I think that Nvidia will be going deeper into a lot of this stuff over the next few weeks as we see the cards get closer to launch, and I am really hyped for the next generation of graphics. Hopefully, AMD 2 just knock it out the park. That would be amazing. I don't mind if AMD or Nvidia are faster, whichever one is good for me. I just want really good competition. So, cross your fingers that AMD 2 bring the pain. With all of that said, thank you very much for watching the video. The normal stuff, if you did enjoy it, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.